Morning, dear all. So we are here to celebrate the 30th anniversary of the Transdisciplinarity Charter for November 6 on 2024. We are going to speak about transdisciplinary management and leadership and present new readings on the 1994 Arrábida TD Charter and 1996 Delor's report by UNESCO. These readings will be the celebration here from Quebec, Canada. Myself, I am Mariana Thieriot Loisel. I will present the problematics and final reflections. I have a postdoc in philosophy, science, and technology by Laval University and several publications on human mutations and gray zones. I'm very proud to introduce my companion here to speak, engineer Leonardo da Silva Guimarães Martins da Costa from Brazil, which has several publications in Canada. Among them, the Integral Leadership Review, which is considered the best transdisciplinary journal we have here in Canada. And he also published with me, co-edited with me, 2 books in Adagio's editor, who has a place in Calgary of distribution. He is honoring us today with his talk. I will just introduce with some questions and conclude. So, Engineer Leonardo, please, can we move on? Can we proceed? So, the problems we see today in philosophy and that we can address to hard science is that the communication mediated by machines, is it a key factor or an obstacle to mutual understanding and human evolution? In fact, to the extent that machines can facilitate concealment, disinformation, fake news, transmission errors, and misinterpretations. We notice that human relations are increasingly codified, mechanized, and procedural. Within organizations, there is arbitrary hierarchy, fragmentation of information, predetermined and standardized objectives and deadlines, which do not take in account the uniqueness of each employee, their needs, or their rhythms. Automated management of people and resources and processes to be implemented, that is to say, as means human capital and not as ends, would add Immanuel Kant. Isn't it this extreme codification of relationship dangerous in the long term, as it prevents personal initiative on the ground, which would allow crises to be anticipated or accidents to be avoided? How to implement human training for engineers, managers, and technicians that will enable them to reflect and make decisions in crisis situations in order to avoid unintentional accidents caused by human error? So, human consciousness is nourished by dialogue on the meaning and the value of human life. Its conditions of possibility being a democratic context that allows the debate of ideas and their evolution in a safe manner. If or by prioritizing computer over people, are we not harming human consciousness and democratic cooperation? How can we ethically organize a compatible relationship between humans and machines? So those are the problems I've seen in my works and that I addressed here today to engineer Costa. And now I let him explain how we could see a compatibility, a complementarity in between what looks not compatible, not as men and machines. Thank you, and to you, please, Leonardo. Time to talk.
Thanks, Mariana. Thanks. I'll start talking in this connection about human complexity using the 1996 UNESCO Delor's report, a very well-known report that talks about 4 types of learning. The learning to live together, learning to be, learning to know, learning to do. And now we have created 2 new interpretations in these 4 elements. The first one related the learning to live together. We think this needs to be addressed in a broader way, not only live together, but live as a whole with yourself and others. So at the same time, those 4 elements can be addressed as only one, a 5th TD or transdisciplinary element of the 5th element that integrate all the 4 in the connection of this schema I have produced in my publications. How can we understand that? Learning to know we can see as the rational type of intelligence. Learning to... Tô aqui, peraí que eu tirei, que estava com o campo, eu tenho que tirar fora o campo antes aqui, que está atrapalhando, eu vó aprender aqui, ó, pronto, para tirar fora do slide que está tampando. Learning to do, it involves empirical intelligence. So those 2 types of intelligence, rational and empirical, in connection to know and to do, are hard skills. The second group would be learning to live not only together, but with ourselves, involve emotional intelligence, because emotional intelligence involves the control of yourself and the control of how you behave with others in the relationship with others. The 4th one would be the connection of learning to be to the intuitive intelligence. This means the meaning, not only causality. The meaning of things in general are connected to intuition. So those 2 groups of learning to live and learning to be, emotional intelligence, intuitive intelligence, are the so-called soft skills that complement the hard skills. And then we have the 4 in a group that I called learning to learn in an integrated transdisciplinary process of consider all the 4. So this would be our new interpretation for and suggestion for the Delor's reports. The first, not only considering live together, but to live, including yourself. And the second, to consider a 5th element of learning to learn, a transdisciplinary element. So in this connection, we have these 4 types of intelligence as a quaternary structure, as I demonstrate in my transdisciplinary theory, that involves also the 4 epistemic ways. And how can we see these 4 epistemic ways in transdisciplinarity? Philosophy, tradition, art, and technoscience, which are closely related to the 4 types of intelligence. The first 3 can be seen as culture, as we have shown in the cover of the volume 1 Adagio's book. Mariana was the co-editor and co-author with me. So we show the rising sun as a symbology for the rising culture of philosophy, tradition, and art. in complementarity with the technoscience being constructed, represented by a crane, showing the interaction between technology and science. So this is our idea of transdisciplinarity, the complementarity between culture and technoscience.
We could even speak, maybe, this is the transdisciplinary new peace culture.
Peace culture, why peace culture?
Because we are speaking today of the need of culture of peace. And the
culture what?
Of peace.
Ah, the culture of peace, okay.
Yes, and this complementarity in between the hard science, the philosophical knowledge, the art and the tradition would lead
to the culture of peace.
Yes, to a new culture, to a culture of peace, I guess. So
can I put it here?
No, it's okay. You can go on. You can go on, please.
As a culture of peace, for example, here.
Yes, I think yes. But it will be for the 2 slides, you know?
Just a minute here. What do you think here now?
Yes, it's okay for me, because then you can explain that if we are in dialogue and not in opposition, as usually we are, the hard science and the social and human science in general, we can go towards a peaceful evolution. And I will come back to this in my conclusion, okay?
What do you think? Rising cultural peace, constructing technoscience, okay?
Yes, okay.
So why are we talking about culture? Because we are talking about the rising culture of peace, which means connecting the 3 epistemic ways of philosophy, tradition, and art. Right, Mariana?
Right,
and
right,
perfect. This needs to dialogue with the constructing technoscience, which is the technology and science. And there is the complementarity process or feedback process, right, Mariana?
Perfect. It's perfect. So, go ahead.
So those 4 epistemic ways have relation with the 4 types of intelligence in our theory. We'll give only one example so as to be more simple. Okay. For example, hard skills involve rational intelligence and empirical intelligence, the concrete and objective at the same time. Mm-hmm. And this is exactly the meaning of technoscience, the technology concrete and the science objective, the technology empirical and the science rational, right? This is how we can interact the intelligence with the epistemic ways. One example. We won't go beyond that, so not to be confusing, okay? Okay. And next, we'll show the 4 types of intelligence and the soft skills and hard skills in an analytical way here, in a problem-solving process. And how can we see that? Eu não estou vendo o título aqui do slide, porra.
Quaternary complementarities problem solving.
Eu vou ter que resolver isso na hora.
No, it's okay. It's okay. Go on, because we're filming. Even if you speak Portuguese, even if we interact, it's good because people see that we're dialoguing, you know, and it's more live.
Yes. So for problem solving, for problem solving, we'll have basically the interaction between human abilities that are the soft skills and technical abilities or the hard skills. The dialogue of the complementarity process between them. So what are soft skills? Intuitive intelligence and emotional intelligence. Hard skills, empirical intelligence and rational intelligence. And how they interact. Soft skills involve the synthetic method for problem solving. What is the synthetic method? The meaning prevails, like in Oriental philosophy, the integration, and the analytical method that involve hard skills, empirical and rational, involves causality, the cause and effect prevails, like in Western philosophy. Those two need to dialogue in an interactive process of ideas that are tested in an analytical method by questions, and then the cycle continues until a good solution is found. And we have more details here. The analytical method can be separated in the inductive method as the empiricism, the concrete way of solving problems, and the deductive method, the rational way, or the objective way of solving problems. This is another way of complementing one another. Like the Romans were good lawyers and engineers. They were inductive, basically, but they sometimes looked for the Greeks that were good philosophers and mathematicians for deductive methods to complement their solutions, as an example in history. So in this connection of problem solving, we have designed two types of troubleshooting and problem solving characteristics. The first one, the troubleshooting requirements, involve the 4 types of intelligence. The first one is meaningfulness. An idea needs to make sense. The second is reasonableness in terms of emotional intelligence. A solution needs to be reasonable, not only rational. And in this connection, the dialogue between reasonability and rationality of the rational intelligence. And then the concreteness, the empirical, the viability of an idea needs to be concretely viable. So this is the requirement for problem solving. And the attributes, the solution, the result needs to have some characteristics, like the dialectics. It must be a result of a dialectical process between synthetic and analytical method, as I have already shown, including all the stakeholders or actors in the process. Everybody in a group needs to give opinions, different opinions. Sometimes it's necessary to have a lot of discussion. The second point is the sustainability, not only the environmental sustainability in material terms or biological terms, but especially the psychological sustainability in the organization. Otherwise, the ESG, environmental, social, and governance, makes no sense. It becomes only a bureaucracy. Third, the effectiveness of a solution. Effectiveness is not only efficiency in terms of cost, economy, and compliance in terms of doing things right, but especially the efficacy of the results of the results in terms of goals established by the organization, but more than the quantitative goals and the planning is the effective result in terms of all the actors, including the actors outside the organization, especially when we are talking about governments and public administration. But also nowadays we see a lot of this in companies in ESG, for example. And last, simplicity as a duality with complexity, as a rational solution. Like Da Vinci said, simplicity, the ultimate sophistication. Newton said nature is fond of simplicity, and Einstein said everything should be made as simple as possible, but no simpler. This is not to be simplistic, but to find the simplest solution, the simplest tool for the complexity of the problem involved. So that be the question of problem solving. Now we have the very well-known transdisciplinary question of levels of reality. In our interpretation, it leads us to the traditional allegory from India of the blind man and the elephant, as you can see in this picture. According to this tradition, many blind men were invited to touch an elephant, and each one, depending on the area of the elephant they touched, they found different perspectives. Like it's a fence, it's a spear, it's a snake, it's a tree, it's a wall, it's a rope. So this is what happens psychologically with many aspects of the human psychological types, especially as far as analytical psychology is concerned. And in this connection, we have the complementarity between conscious and unconscious, and the concept of shadow, that is exactly the part of our consciousness, depending on our psychological type, that we are not able to see consciously, or the one we repress unconsciously. That's the same concept of complementarity of duality. So the shadow can be seen simply as what our consciousness does not perceive. And you can see that clearly by the psychological types of the Myers-Briggs type indicator, which is a evolution of the analytical psychology types that were only 8 types in the Jungian types. The Myers-Briggs type indications are 16 types, considering the 4 dominant functions combined with the preference of extroversion, introversion, and the preference between judgment and perception. So we have 16 types that are like a psychological DNA. So we have another way to see how shadows, the things our consciousness does not see, by the functions that are not dominant. So this is just like a DNA for biology. It's proven that the MBTI types does not change with the age. They are the same. The only thing that happens that the functions, they become more strong, even the weaker ones. So, as Jung said, since the consciousness is like a headlight, the dominant functions illuminate the object and the weaker functions remain in the shadow, reflecting different levels of reality, showing the blind man and the elephant allegory, as have already demonstrated by the traditional Hindu myth, right? That's a way of dialoguing technoscience and tradition as 2 different epistemic ways. So in the concept of management and mediation, we have a new way of looking at the Article 13 of the Arrábida TD Charter of 1994, which is this transdisciplinary ethics that rejects any attitude that refuses dialogue and discussion. We have now a more techno-scientific approach that involves the group feedback in the literature involving management, that refers to understanding the constructive and productive feedback that evidence those in a workgroup connection. A lack or negative feedback may indicate participants who are not connected to the group, as it is part of organizational practice that may apply to any institution, not to be confused with company capitalist economic practice of corporate feedback, right? This is not an economical conduct simply. It's group feedback. It works for every type of group, including university, public service, even the families, everything. The essence is the same, because this idea of corporate feedback started in companies, but it can be applied to any type of organization or group. So the second part, besides the group...
I would like to add something. The group transdisciplinary feedback is very interesting things in terms of indicators of success. What in my actions, in my folds, indicates that I'm realizing, that I'm achieving the goals I'm supposed to achieve. And instead of criticizing and diminishing or arguing, we tend to see the strength of the people we work with, and not the negative, what they don't do, but what they're able to do. You understand? I don't know if we should add something here, but...
I guess you can comment.
Okay,
I guess
so
it's
okay. So go ahead, please.
I like your comment. It's
okay,
good to...
perfect. Let's just proceed.
I guess we don't need to write anything else because it's already too long, the
Yes,
extension
absolutely.
of what's written. So the second part,
yes,
that would complement the Article 13 of the TD Charter.
yes,
It's to see the transdisciplinary ethics as a complementary issue between the ethical compliance and regulatory compliance. This means that we need to follow the bureaucratic rules in organizations and at the same time behave in a way that prioritizes the well-being of the group, which one belongs, in contrast to egocentric behavior. That's how I would define the Article 13 in an updated way. So in this connection of management and leadership, in my theory, I have designed, starting from public administration, 4 groups of disciplines that can be applied not only for public administration, but also any kind of organization. The first group would be the technoscience one, involving the business administration, economics, engineers, and the natural science one, like health, medicine, etc. This need to dialogue with the bureaucracy of law and legislation of the organization, and this form the technobureaucracy of the organization. What are the risks of this interdisciplinarity? Is the risk of naivety or credulity. Why? Because we need to be sometimes smart, not only scientific and following the rules. For example, technoscience, there is a risk of dogmatic scientism. And in bureaucracy, law and legislation, the risk of self-centered positivism. You see, it's the same principle. So we see here, technoscience, risk of dogmatic scientism. Bureaucracy, risk of self-centered positivism. Technoscience is science in interaction with bureaucracy. Technobureaucracy, the risk of naivety and credulity. And now we have the other group of interaction, which are the humanities of the organization, involve psychology and human resource with technoscience. And then we can see the risk of excessive discretion. Why? Because it's the risk of a management that want to decide everything alone in his mind, right? So that would be the third risk, the risk of interaction between technoscience and humanities in management, the risk of excessive discretion. Mariana, do you think discretion is well understood as the opposite of como é que em português?
To be invasive.
Discricionariedade. Você nem vai saber em português como é que é discricionariedade.
I mean to be invasive. To be discretion is not to be invasive, is it?
Não. Agora é que eu estou vendo aqui, porque isso é uma linguagem.
But
discricionariedade.
Okay. Yes.
Deixa eu te explicar em português. Discricionariedade é você poder decidir com total liberdade, o gestor, sem estar vinculado na legislação, na norma.
So I translate
sem seguir o protocolo.
I translate. So the discretionarity in Portuguese means that you are free to decide without taking account all of the positions and legislations and all the actors involved. So you can go on. We understood very well. So
the discretion, I can comment. The discretion means the liberty of deciding without being worried about excessive rules, right?
Perfect.
Is this okay?
Right. It's okay.
So the risk of excessive discretion, because we have an excessive of rules in Brazil. So the next interaction would be the humanities with politics. Politics here is considered the art of articulation and dialogue in a good sense, not
yes, I would say in a Greek sense.
In a Greek
sense, a Republic Greek sense.
In the Greek sense, maybe I can tell you that. But like the politics that are legitimized by civil society as a representatives of civil society
Yes.
in the legislation parliament. So the connection between humanities and politics in this type of organizational management is communication, advertising, and journalism. And the risk here is the risk of manipulation. In many ways, we use the manipulation of information, right?
Yes, fake news. What I was talking at the start, we have all this problem of the information nowadays, which is the good information. It's very difficult to be informed. And we already talked, you and I, about that. And you advised me to read several papers and not one, to multiply the sources of information, to see, to have a balance of what's going on.
Exactly. That's why nobody can be excessive techno-bureaucrat. Otherwise, we'll be easily manipulated by communicators in politics, right?
Right.
That's
so
the point.
We have a risk of ideology, as you say.
Yes. But here, the ideological dogmatism is here between the politicians and the bureaucrats. You use the bureaucrats in service of the ideology, telling the supposed truths in an ideological way, in such a way that is manipulated in the norms, right? So that's the other risk.
Those risks that you plant, that you show us, are very interesting and important, because we really suffer from all those excess, and I would connect them with the prevention the TD Charter already saw in 1994, advising us against scientific dogmatism. 30 years ago, they saw the risk of dogmatism and ideology. So it's a very, very interesting.
So we still have seen dogmatic scientists, so those were excessive techno-scientific, and the risk of partisan ideology in ideology. Here, in connection between lawyers and politicians that are focused on ideology. That's the same problem manifested in different opposite ways, right? Dogmatic scientism and ideology, but at the end is the same thing.
Of course.
The same thing, the manipulation for other purposes that are not solving problems in a sustainable and transdisciplinary way for society. So that would close the mediation management process, these 4 disciplines with 4 interdisciplinarities, and at the center, the TD mediation, that would be the transdisciplinary view of all those risks, right? That would be transdisciplinary mediation management. The second part would be the TD leadership in connection to this management mediation. That would be 2 types of leadership, as we have identified in our models of our theory. The first one is the techno-bureaucrats here, and the managers here. The managers interact with techno-bureaucrats in the governance of the organizations. This means the internal environment of the organizations, that this could be companies, this could be universities, this could be any type of non-governmental organization, or even governments, in many ways, states, federal, etc. The techno-bureaucrats need to dialogue with managers so as to find the best governance solution in terms of governance in the internal environment of the organization. And those that are basically technical leaders, they need to dialogue with the intuitive leaders, which are the politicians legitimized by the civil society. The politicians, in a good sense, are intuitive leaders because they don't know the problems. In a technical essence, they need technical bureaucrats, even outside or inside, as they are.
It's perfectly clear. it's perfectly clear. It's perfectly clear.
So,
And I would add that not only politics, but as well, maybe we could put on the diagram politics and civil society, because the civil society also has an important part to play and in the art of articulation and dialogue, because they dialogue all the time with politicians, right?
Mm-hmm.
The civil society should be involved also. But let's proceed. Let's proceed.
Art of articulation dialogue with civil society.
With civil society.
Não, vamos arrumar aqui. Vamos arrumar aqui, porque senão a gente... Ah, não, a gente depois arruma. Depois a gente termina. Porque senão a gente precisa ver o tempo que a gente vai gastar.
Yes,
também, né?
we don't have much time left.
So in this connection, mediation management, as we see in that schema, how can you mediate conflicts with TD? Using those 4 types of intelligence I have already shown. The first one is the generalist as an articulator leader with many specialists, as I told you. The technicians with the managers in the previous slides. The peacemaker. We need the mediator manager needs to be a facilitator, articulator, and conflict harmonizing, promoting agreement to resolve conflict like a fire extinguisher before the fire spreads, avoiding costs for the organization, especially. Not only costs, but costs in terms of psychological sustainability.
Yes, just to remind you, we exceed 10 minutes already. We are 40 minutes talk. So...
So how much? How much?
We are already talking since 38 minutes.
Já deu 40?
Mm-hmm. Let's go.
Fudeu, não dá, não.
No, we go.
It's
wonderful. I'm recording. Go ahead.
Essas suas intervenções dão uma dinâmica muito boa, viu,
I know. Please go ahead.
The exercise of being one shoes. This means find an honorable way out for everybody, because everybody needs to find a way out, an honorable way. Otherwise, the conflict will be kept. So, ghost persons, for example, 2 mediators in complementary profiles looking for goals and problems under the captain organization environment.
That's very interesting, because that's Uberlandier idea, right?
Yes.
That we put things under the carpet, and the social audit, or the guy who is trying to solve problems in an organization, he has to be a ghostbuster. So he has to have an attitude of searching, who is the ghost in the company that the company is hiding, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And the ghost idea is from Landier, and under the carpet is my idea, but at the end is the same thing. The meaning is the same. Welcoming in a broad sense. This means listen bureaucratically, the facts and the procedures, using the empirical intelligence and concrete intelligence, to real rationally, using rational intelligence, to welcome in strict sense all stakeholders or participants, using emotional intelligence. Why strict sense? Because welcoming in a broad sense involve all those 3: the listening, to hear, and to welcome, right? As a conditioned reflection. The 4th one, the mediating manager can listen and welcome. This means accept and integrate all participants in work group and organization as follows. Acceptance. The acceptance means the manager and participants must accept emotionally the discussion of new ways, because sometimes the rational discussion doesn't mean the person emotionally accepts. This is very complicated to understand, but it's how it works. Sometimes the person rationally...
We accept rationally, but not emotionally.
Not emotionally. So in a broad sense, the acceptance, you need to accept to discuss with people you don't like, or ideas that you don't like.
Yes.
In that end, the integration, that means intuitive intelligence, that sense of dialectical integration of everybody. Everybody needs to feel included, right?
Right.
So, ai, meu Deus, vai dar uma hora essa
No,
merda.
it's okay. So we go to conclusion because I think it's very important to conclude. And I will conclude as to honor our Canadian fellows that are bilingual. I will conclude in French and very fast in English. So we have two logics. When we have the learning logic, we are opposing to the conditional logic. And so, la logique de l'apprentissage ou la logique du conditionnement. En effet, les machines ont des réponses connues et anticipées, des opérations mentales inconscientes, elles sont prévisibles, elles ont des valeurs finies, elles sont dépendantes et hétéronomes. Alors que l'humain, lui, débat, analyse, il a des dialogiques, des idées différentes, ils sont conscients, ils sont autonomes, ils sont même conscients d'être conscients, sont sensibles, capables d'improvisation, de création, imprévisibles, libres, et ils ont des valeurs infinies. Comme dirait Kant, pour opposer l'humain à la montre, elle a une valeur finie, l'humain a une valeur infinie. On ne peut pas quantifier la valeur d'une vie humaine. Next. Alors, il nous faudrait entrer dans une logique des chefs-d'œuvre. La logique du chef-d'œuvre, c'est la logique des mutations humaines. I would say we need to enter in the logic of a masterpiece. The logic of the masterpiece is the logic of human mutation. It's a book I wrote, and it's also a long research that was accompanied by the professor Thomas de Coninck, emeritus professor of University Laval of Philosophy. What is a human mutation? Is the power to propose solutions that are absolutely new. I would speak in French now. La mutation humaine, c'est le pouvoir de proposer des solutions inédites, la capacité d'intégrer des nouvelles représentations, comme la multiréférence, la complexité, le paradoxe, la logique du tiers inclus, les logiques fuzzy, les capacités d'abduction. En fait, la capacité de dépasser des conflits en créant une ouverture aux nouvelles réalités. Donc, je voudrais remercier très chaleureusement notre invité, l'ingénieur Leonardo Costa. I would like to thank the engineer who honored us today with his presence, engineer Leonardo Costa, and to invite everybody that is seeing this video to be present the 6th of November in the TD Charter celebration and to listen to us again, maybe, and this day. And we will add the Zoom link for our talk while we will spread this talk all over, because we hope you will be very numerous to listen to us. Thank you so much. Merci beaucoup. Obrigada, Leonardo, and à bientôt.
Obrigado, Maria.